You're listening to a Brother Asks and Building Better Builders video education series production.
Welcome back to the CraftsmanOnLine podcast. This is a weekly program focused on the relevant topics in Freemasonry and the various aspects of the craft. Any opinions, thoughts, or viewpoints shared during this program are that of the individual and do not reflect the official position of any Grand Lodge, appendant, or concordant body from which that member may hail. I'm your host, Brother Michael Arce, editor-in-chief of CraftsmenOnLine.com, and the degree process in Freemasonry is a system built on study and proficiency. Yet, for a lot of Master Masons, they finish their third degree and they face a challenge when they're seeking more light in Masonry. Our guest this week is Brother John Nagy. Welcome back, Brother John.
Thank you once again for having me back, Brother Michael.
He's going to help us tackle the process of mapping the degree work in Freemasonry. And I think this episode's going to lean a lot on the fact that you are a coach. And I think this is going to be helpful for a lot of brothers who are either just finishing up that third degree or others like me that they've been doing this for a few years now and are getting into that point of, well, what's next? Where can I go next? How can I keep expanding? How can I keep learning? So I'd like for you to share with our listener how you break down each degree and how it prepares a different aspect of Freemasonry, like when it comes to the heart, mind, and spirit.
The very first thing that I say to candidates who ask me this kind of line of questioning is that every single thing that they went through is a experiential roadmap. In fact, I went so far as to write down, I think, the last chapter in the Craft Unmasked, that what you want to be telling candidates is that what they experience is a symbolic roadmap that they were walked through during the 3 degrees, and they were shown or told or informed during each one of these roadmap introductions what they had to do to improve themselves. And most jurisdictions ask the brothers, once they've gone through the experience, to go through something called proficiencies, which is to drive home the point and internalize the roadmap that they just experienced. And then I get the zinger. I share the zinger with them and say, if you internalize the roadmap, but you don't follow the roadmap, your work is for naught. Literally, each and every one of these degrees has a roadmap that you're supposed to internalize, either by the requirement of the Grand Lodge or by simply understanding that what you went through has got to be followed as a roadmap. And if you follow the roadmap, you will find that the terrain that you travel is one of self-improvement, internalizing specific disciplines. And the disciplines are symbolized by a lot of the working tools that you're introduced to through this roadmap experience. Now, get to the comment that you're asking about the heart, the mind, and the spirit. This is something that I came across as I was looking at the roadmaps and what each one represented. And it became very clearly obvious to me that the first degree focused on what I call taming the dog. And that is the internalizing of disciplines that brings order to the chaos of the heart. It's taming all those wild things within you that are chaotic, your passions, your desires, your time management, vices and superfluities. I could name 9 or 10 of these different categories. But as a result of taking a look at what you experienced in the entered apprentice degree, the map is laid out before you. The work that you have to do traveling the terrain that the map symbolizes all has to do with bringing order to the chaos of the heart. Now we go to the next degree, the second degree, And that degree is all about bringing order to the chaos of the mind, the gray matter.
Mm.
So the first degree is taming the dogs, bringing order to the chaos of the heart. And the second degree, a map is laid out that beautifully illustrates what you must do in order for you to bring order to the chaos of your thinking. And you're quite literally learning how to learn, as opposed to the first degree where you're preparing how to learn. Not that you're not learning in either case, but the focus is preparing to learn the first degree, taming the heart, and then learning how to go about learning, finding out all the things that have been learned in the past and how to understand them, how to integrate the learning models that have been discovered in the past, and bringing order to the chaos of the thoughts that you have about things that you encounter. And it trains you in two wonderful categories having to do with words and numbers. The words are the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And the quadrivium is all about the symbols as they appear as numbers. Obviously, it's arithmetic, geometry, music, and physics, which we refer to as astronomy. And once you have tamed both the heart and the head, there's a wonderful thing that is not stated directly, but it's obvious for those who have actually done the work. And you come to understand that what constitutes the soul is the emotional and the intellectual aspect of our humanity. And by taming the heart and the mind, what you literally are doing is you're taming your soul. You're bringing order to the chaos of the soul. So once you've taken those two under your belt and done the work, and by the way, that is completing your temple, then you can start building that spiritual building that is talked about in the trestle board talk in the first degree. On this side of the pond, it's referred to as movable jewels. And in the trestle board lecture, we are told that we are to erect a spiritual building that is agreeable to the laws and rules laid out by God himself. And it's only at the Master Mason level that we are supposed to be actually rolling up our sleeves and doing that. And you can't do that until you've actually completed your temple, which is the first and second degree work. Now, the first and second degree work are the heart and the mind, and we're talking about the soul. And it's a third degree where we take that discipline, all those things that we did following those roadmaps, and we apply them toward bringing order to the chaos of the spirit, which is building that spiritual building. That's pretty much laid out. I mean, I could go so far as to say the third degree, whereas the first degree is the preparing to learn, second degree is learning how to learn, the third degree is learning and teaching. This falls in lockstep with a dismissal of the claim that you're always an apprentice, because God help you if you're always an apprentice. The claim is, well, if I'm always learning, I'm always setting myself up as an apprentice. No. At the Master Mason level, you're no longer learning as an apprentice. You're learning as a master because you have laid the foundation to know how to learn. And now you are learning and you are teaching. And it's a big step in a whole different direction.
I always like to say one of the big foundations for learning is asking questions, which we all do it, but there's like asking the right questions and, seeking that wisdom. And to that extent, I want to spend some time, because I feel like what happens with a lot of the brothers that have gone through a similar experience to me is the learning process is kind of set up for you from the moment that your application is read and you're told, show up at this night wearing this and be prepared to receive your first degree. From that point on, let's just say safely the next 6 to 9 months, you know what you're going to be learning and what the process is going to be. But then there's the two likely outcomes that usually happen for newly raised Masons. First, they either get into the officer line and they continue studying the ritual because now they're getting a speaking part, they're participating in the degrees, they're seeing more of Freemasonry, the play being acted out for them. And unfortunately, the second outcome is you have guys that just don't find any light in their lodge and they begin searching for it in other places. And hopefully for those brothers, they do find resources, because some just get frustrated and move on to other places. How can we better prepare this so that this isn't the two possible outcomes here? Is that you either become an active member by becoming an officer, or you get lucky and you find someone else that you can read a book with?
Three things. First, we don't educate, we train. And as a result, what happens is the individuals who came there to learn recognize that they're being trained, they're not being taught. And the difference between the two is taught is you start understanding what you went through. Being trained is you're going to basically repeat what you've gone through so that you can now repeat it to somebody else and have them repeat it. It's all training. It's not learning. The individuals who went through the first thing that you mentioned, going through the line and learning ritual, well, yeah, they're learning ritual, but really what they're doing is they're memorizing it so they can repeat it back to perform the ritual for others. They're really not understanding what it is that they're learning. Now, this is a generality that I'm making. Obviously, there are some people who actually do take it serious and try to understand what it is that they're learning so that when they repeat it, they'll have a better understanding and foundation to which to convey it to others. It's not the norm. And the individuals who come through and don't want to be basically what I call running the gym, they don't want to come in and they don't want to be running the operation. They want to be nurtured by it. And no matter what they put in, they're not going to get out of it what they put in, because the system is simply not there to support them understanding what it is that they went through. And then what happens is they go off into either Zoot land, or they go on the net and they start talking with learned brothers who have taken the time to understand what it was that went through, or they try to purchase books. And unfortunately, there's a huge assortment of books out available to seekers that they're a very romantic view of the craft. They're teaching romanticized history. Well, not even romanticized history, romanticized fantasy masquerading as history. And they figure, yes.
Some of those, there is that special unicorns by the campfire section. That's one of my favorites to dip into from time to time.
Yes. And you have people who fall in love with like Manly P. Hall. I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers. The guy wrote some stuff before he was even a Mason. And a lot of the stuff that he wrote, in my view, is romanticized. It's not.
Right. And we can even be honest, like when you talk about the big pillar writers in Freemasonry, I don't know very many brothers who have read and understand Pike's writings. And I know very few that can get Manly P. Hall and also Mackey. It's just they're on a different level. If the beginning of it is when someone asks a question like, hey, which one of these books should I read? And you start saying, don't read the book that this person is most known for because it's going to go over your head, that's a problem.
Then we have Born in Blood, and I confess I read it. I was enamored by it. I was swept away by the fantasy. He rudely put into his book actual ritual that disclosed to me as a pre-Mason what it was that I was going to go through. And I got excited by the book. I wanted to become part of it.
You're going to be a Templar.
Exactly. Or a pirate, yeah. But when I started researching and finding out that a lot of the stuff that he wrote was not spot on, romanticized, a little bit of a fantasy and conjecture, I was disillusioned. And I said, I never, ever want to produce anything that's going to disillusion a view of a Mason based on a non-reality. Now, if I'm disillusioning a brother because I'm putting the fact in front of him, better he learn from me than continue down that course in some sort of fantastic construct that he's pursuing, chasing those unicorns around the North Pole. Don't want that to happen.
No,
I didn't
you don't.
like it when it happened to me, and I don't want to ever have that happen to another brother. So you've got that third category, that brothers wind up either being disillusioned, or they say, you know, there's got to be more here. I'm not going to get it through the organization, so I'm on my own. I'm one of them. I literally wasn't going to just accept the fact that I wasn't going to ever understand, because there was nobody there that was going to teach me. And so I rolled up my sleeves and I started researching, and I started talking with other brothers, and slowly but surely I started putting the dots down on the paper and connecting the dots.
Right.
And there's a handful of Masons who are actually doing that.
Right. You're
There's
the you're that part of the Matthew scripture that not a lot of people follow, which is seek and you will find it. Most of us just ask and you will be told, and you're like, thank you.
And that's another aspect, is that there's a lot of brothers coming in, they're seeking and they're asking, but they're not finding, because what it is that they're being provided with is not really educational. It's more training, it's more dogma. So
yeah, and I think for, you know, brothers that are listening that are a little established, you know, they're like, yeah, these are the veins that are available. This is where we see, and we've talked about it on previous episodes. You see brothers who show an interest in, you know, going to an appendant body or a concordant body for more of the story, but in a different light, or, you know, different parts of Masonry that they start to become exposed to, which all are excellent things when it comes to the charity work that we do, or the fraternity work, or the fellowship, or all wonderful things. But it's the part that we feel that we wish that we could get them to embrace a little bit more of, which is that inner knowledge, that making a good man better, the Masonic education. And it's interesting because we are not a standardized organization, at least, you know, in America, to where you have many different jurisdictions all kind of preaching the same thing, but not a general resource that we can all follow or look to for guidance.
Agreed. And you have brothers who come in, they're very much wanting to be participating in a improvement organization and a structure, and what they find is it's not there for them, and they get disillusioned. There are individuals who participate in what Freemasonry has to offer, and not a deliberate, but as a secondary feature of just participating, they start learning how to interact with men in a adult fashion, and they learn through osmosis by just being with other men. And I confess, I enjoy that aspect too. It's not something that I thought would actually happen when I first joined, but I had hoped it would, and it actually did for me.
Well, what was interesting for me was being a little bit younger and coming into a room with much older gentlemen and feeling like, okay, I'm in a learn mode here. I'm sure there's things that I could share with them, but if I'm wise, I'm going to sit here and just soak up all of this wisdom that these guys have collectively amassed over the years and see what I can gain from them.
And there's an aspect that the craft actually offers in that respect. And I'm looking forward to my more senior years when I'll be able to pass down what it is that I have been offered through my participation in the craft to the younger members coming through. And I certainly do not want to disappoint them. I want to be the individual that I was seeking to be involved with when I first joined. I'm getting there slowly but surely.
Well, you've also been getting there page by page, so to speak. For those of you who have followed us from the very beginning, Brother John is an accomplished Masonic author and speaker. We've always shared the links to his website and also to his reading materials and the books that he has out. And I think of you when it comes to Masonic education as one of my favorite lines when Andy Dufresne was talking to his friend Red in the movie Shawshank Redemption. And he said, if you've come this far, perhaps you'll come a little bit farther. And I always wanted to know, what was it like, or what has it been like when you've heard feedback from brothers who have discovered your books or your blog articles as they were seeking this light, and they find this source and it's on their computer, or it's a book that they can purchase and, read at home?
There have been quite a few moments in my conveying of light where I found myself tearing up. There were several times when a member who was 40 or 50 years in the craft would come up to me after I got done speaking and said to me, "This is what I joined for. And I waited 40 or 50 years to experience what you just shared with me." I'm both delighted, I'm honored, and there's a bit of sadness too that they would spend 40 or 50 years waiting for somebody to basically share light that should have been shared with them immediately coming into the craft, that they had to wait that long. I have younger members who would read one of my books or read one of the posts, and I've got a lot of posts and blog articles that I've posted, along with the books that I've written, videos that we produce like this one, and I get backroom chatter, back channel chatter, basically saying, "I really liked what it is that you were saying about such and such." It's icing on the cake. I don't look for it, but when it comes my way, I cherish it. I will ultimately have to replace myself. I'll have to train my replacement, and I can't do that unless there's somebody who has got the zeal for what it is that I've got. The best way that I can find that individual or those individuals is to share as much light as I can. And that's through the books, through the blog posts, the posts on Facebook, and of course, the videos that we produce. There's quite a few individuals who have contacted me through back channel, and they're pursuing the same direction, and they're coming up with some unbelievably original materials. And I look forward to the next decade because I have sown a lot of seeds and I have nurtured a lot of saplings, and some of them are taking off and getting very, very deep roots. And I'm looking forward to the day of being able to enjoy the fruit of their labor. I won't produce a book, I won't produce a video, and I won't produce any kind of blog article unless it's something that I would look forward to reading myself, or listening to, or watching myself. And so when I put something out, it's with the understanding that if there's a like spirit out there to be found, the best way of finding it is to put stuff out there that they would be attracted to. And they're coming out of the woodwork slowly but surely. The brothers are coming up to speed. They're seeing the strategy, they're seeing the methodology, they're seeing the light. And I'm looking forward again to the next 2 decades where I can sit back and I can watch a video put on by somebody else who's got the kind of focus that I have, explaining how ritual impacts our lives directly, the work that needs to be done in order for us to improve our lives and build that spiritual building. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And
I
God
have to
willing,
say,
God willing, I will be available to experience it.
yes, you'll be around. I have to say, I'm not allowed to have a favorite guest that comes on our podcast, but you are a frequent and very welcomed guest as you come on with the partnership that we've created with Building Better Builders. And one of the things that I always think about it. I'm like, I've never had a conversation with Brother John on the other parts of Masonic issues and problems that are constantly being discussed. We never get into membership questions or our focus is always on education and learning parts of the ritual. And that's what I've always enjoyed. And to me, I continue to go to your blog, and as I'm sitting here going, hey, I had an idea for a topic. I wonder if, yep, he's written 15 blog articles about this, or at least one book or a couple of chapters and a few books that are scattered around on this particular topic. And I feel like you're the one brother that you and I could go through every single line. And I know this is why we have, brothers that listen to these episodes, is they enjoy you going through every single line and, getting a 30-minute lecture on the meaning of this and feeling that enrichment. And for me, what it does inside is, one, I like to see the smile that comes on your face. I get to see it, and our brothers listening don't, unfortunately. But just hearing the energy that comes in your voice and you sharing that, and then I get that. I'm like, wow, that would have been a whole part of this experience that I would have walked literally right by, probably for 40 years, like somebody else. And until somebody said something about the lesson of Ruth taking off her shoe and passing it, I would have never made that Masonic connection.
Well, it's an absolute joy and pleasure to be able to share this light with you, Brother Michael, and the fact that you're enjoying it so much is just icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a little break. We'll reconnect on March 14th as we look forward to our next podcast episode together. And it's one, and I'll tease, we rarely kind of tease this, so I'm going to let the brothers in on this one know how good this is going to be. As I said to Brother John, I was like, hey, do you think there's any special meetings in our Masonic degree charges, and the different optional versions that exist by jurisdiction, and the eyes like lit up. So I can't wait to get into that one.
Likewise.
It's going to be a good one. For now, this has been the Craftsman Online podcast. Of course, our guest, Brother John Nagy. Thank you again for coming on this week, brother.
You're most welcome, and thanks for having me.
Reminder that new episodes of our Craftsman Online podcast are available for download every Monday morning. Until we meet next time, let peace and harmony prevail.
You've been listening to a Brother Asks and Building Better Builders video education series production.